This week we are reading Parsha's Vayera, a Parsha with many things that are such important lessons for life for everyone, but especially for the Jewish people. And of course, this week is the Shabbos project. So, extra, even though, of course, every week is Shabbos and every week is really, in a sense, the Shabbos project, but this week an extra pushes on for people to observe Shabbos as much as possible across the world. And it's a worldwide phenomenon, which everyone is encouraged to do just something extra for Shabbos and make it that much more special. So the beginning of the Parsha, we have a famous story where Avraham just had his bris, and Hashem is visiting him, and some people show up, and the whole story that Hashem made a thing that he was to be hot, so people shouldn't come, but Avraham was not feeling like, oh, how could he not have guests? And Hashem sends 3 malachim, people, whatever it is, looks like people. Turns out we find out they're really angels. And the Torah describes in great detail what they ate, what Avram served, how he prepared it, what he did for himself, what he sent somebody else to do, all very, very detailed of how. And of course, we're talking about Avram, 99 years old, just had a bris 3 days before, so obviously he's still in some pain. And look how far he went to do this. That's the story, and lots of lessons we can learn. We're going to hold that for a moment. We'll probably talk about it over Shabbos and different occasions as well. However, this is not the only story in the Parsha that deals with having guests, because there's another story later in the Parsha where Lot is inside the city. He's living in Sodom, the city that's about to get destroyed because it's so evil. And actually 2 of these 3 angels come to Sodom because their job, one of them his job is to destroy Sodom. The other one's job is to save Lot and his family. And they arrive, and the Torah again says, and Lot invites them in, and he prepares a feast for them. However, there's a big difference between the 2 stories. In the first story, the Torah tells us what the menu was and how it was prepared. In the second story, it just tells you he made a feast, and okay, throws in one thing. There was matzah. Matzos afava yachel, that he ate matzah. Okay, so we learned from there it was around Pesach time that they used to, however that works in terms of them keeping things, they're keeping laws, but there were matzos. But it doesn't tell you anything else. All of the story is about how the people of Sodom wanted to get Lot, and that he should send out these people because they wanted to kill them, right? And how Lot held the door. That's the story. Nothing to do with all of the Chesed and all of the work that he did to prepare. And when you think about these 2 stories, right? Who is the one who's lauded for his hachnosas orchim? Where do we learn the lesson of how you treat guests? We learn it from Abraham. We don't learn it from Lot. Now, if you think about it, though, didn't Lot? Lot did. He stood up to all those guys. He's in a place where it was illegal to have guests, and it was a death penalty. That was why Sodom was so terrible. One of the reasons they were so terrible is because if someone stranger came in, they didn't let anybody in, and you weren't allowed to host anyone. And here he basically is putting his life on the line for the sake of hosting guests. And we don't say, wow, look at Lot, how great he was. Well, why is that? So I'm going to give you a story that will answer the question as well. And it's a famous story. I actually interestingly saw the story in 2 different versions. Maybe there were 2 different stories with 2 different great sages of what happened. So the one I saw first, it was with the Brisker Rav Yosef Ber Soloveitchik. I don't remember the years, somewhere in the 1800s. And the story is that he was traveling, and when he traveled, he was one of the leading sages of the time, and anybody who met him knew who he was. Tremendous respect. But when he used to travel, he didn't dress up in his fancy clothing, whatever. He didn't make it like who he was. And he arrives at this inn, and the innkeeper had no idea who he was, and he wanted to have a place to stay. And the innkeeper says, "I'm sorry, but we don't have any space." And he said, oh, it's late, it's already late. I need a place to stay, da, da, da. And finally he says, okay, you can sleep over here or somewhere in some corner on the floor. And he gives him a place to stay, but that's it. And so he lies down on the floor there. He takes out a sefer, he's learning, and he's sitting there in the corner. A little while later, a carriage rolls up, and it's one of the Hasidic rebbes. I don't know which one, didn't see the name, but comes with an entourage, and he's clearly someone special. And the innkeeper comes out, and he greets him and says, "Oh, I'm going to give you a place to stay and take care of you, etc." And he basically gives him the royal treatment. And the Rebbe sees that there's somebody in the corner over there. And he, who is that person? What's he doing there? And he goes a little closer and he recognizes who it is. And he says, Rabbi Yoshe Ber, what are you doing on the floor? So he says, oh, because this is where I'm sleeping. And the innkeeper, who now realizes who it is suddenly so apologetic. Oh, if I had known who you were, I wouldn't have done that. I would have given you a place, da, 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 da. And he's just profusely apologizing. And Rabbi Yoshe Ber, he was known as the Brisker Rav, from Brisk, he says, I'm sorry, but I can't forgive you for that. But I'll tell you what I'll do. If you agree to come to my house for 2 weeks, and I'll show you what it means to treat guests, then I can forgive you. And he says, and I'm going to tell you a Dvar Torah to you understand what's going on. And he tells him about this story with Lot and Abraham. And he says, what was the difference between Lot and Abraham? So if we look at the wording in the Torah, when it talks about Abraham, in the beginning of the story, it tells you there were 3 guys. Get the exact words here. Just trying to find them. It says he was sitting there out there, and yeah, Vihine, he looks, and Vihine Shlosha Anashim. There are 3 men, and that are standing there, and he runs to get them, and he takes care of them. It turns out they were angels, but it's described as 3 men, 3 people. In the story of Lot, it says, Vayavo Shnei HaMalachim El Sodom. The 2 angels came to Sodom. So Lot, he knew they were angels. So Abraham did not necessarily know they were angels. Abraham was treating them because they're just people. Meaning that Abraham says, I don't care who you are. These guys were supposedly like some nomads coming from, who knows where. They were nothing special at all. If anything, in those times, they would have been looked down upon, these people, the way it looked. And Abraham's treating them with the greatest respect and rolling out the red carpet for them. Lot, yeah, of course. The angels are coming. The dignitaries are coming. The fact that he rolls out the royal treatment for them, that doesn't prove anything. That anybody would do that. If the king would show up, if the prime minister would show up, maybe, but if some other people would show up, right, someone very important, you would be treating them with tremendous respect. How do you treat the person who's just the average Joe, or maybe someone who's not even an average Joe? When they come, how are you treating them? And the Brisker Rav says to this guy, it doesn't make a difference who I am. If I was a Brisker Rav, I'm just, even if I was a regular person, you should still be treating me with respect and giving me the proper place to stay. And so the idea is that when we are doing a chesed for someone, why are we doing it? It's not just with inviting guests. It's with anything that we do for other people. Are we doing it because, look at the honor I'm going to get from honoring that person? That person's special, therefore I'm doing it? No, that should not be the reason. The reason should be because any person is deserving of proper treatment. Every person is deserving of respect, and every person who's in need, I should be doing whatever I can to help that person. And therefore, it doesn't make a difference who the person is. And that's the lesson we learn from. That's why the story of Abraham is the one that is the classic case of inviting guests, because it doesn't make a difference who they are. It's the fact that you are going to treat them no matter what. And you're going to do the best you can for those people, even if that person is not necessarily the most honorable person in the world. And we will hold it there. Have a great
Thank
shot.
you.